Heroic Reveries perfectly represents the character growth of ReZero's protagonist, Natsuki Subaru, an ordinary boy unable to recognize the rare, invaluable qualities within himself, his natural gift for connecting the others. The episode The Newest of Heroes and the Most Ancient of Heroes stands out as a powerful showcase of Subaru's character development, in a very interesting, retrospective and open-hearted way that is not often seen in media. And it is one of my favorite moments in the series as well. So today we'll do a complete breakdown of the layers of Subaru's growth and the impact of his powerful speech in Priestella. Amidst the chaos in Priestella, Subaru and the royal candidates encounter themselves cornered by the witch cult, which has seized control of the city's watchtowers. With the power to flood the entire city in water and wipe out all of remaining life, the cult has paralyzed the citizens with fear, driving them into emergency bunkers. Yet, even knowing Reinhardt, the Sword Saint, is among the city, the people cannot remain calm. Serious authority of emotional amplification is turning their fear into a storm, slowly multiplying their fear, anger, and every emotion over and over again. And this effect is reaching the knights responsible to defend the city. Subaru's situation is also grim. Since he has got to that city, he died 3 times in a row, and now he is stuck on a loop where he is severely injured. Failed to protect one of the royal candidates who got infected by an incurable disease, his dear spirit companion on the edge of death, and the princess he has sworn to protect, and most importantly, the girl he loved, has been taken by the cult's strongest member. Also, the witch cult demanded not to interrupt the wedding ceremony of the silver-haired girl, and to give them the Great Spirit, 2 of the most important things to Subaru. Yet, remarkably, Subaru remained calm through it all. A far cry from the Subaru of Season 1. The Subaru who clung desperately to Emily's side, believing that only himself could protect others by sacrificing his own life. Deep down, he is in fact incredibly worried, and it's clearly pictured in the internal monologues we get to read in the novel. But after all, feeling the weight of worry and responsibility as Emily's true knight, he keeps his composure. We can clearly see this in 3 scenes. In the refugee shelter after Regulus' attack, when Priestella rescues Subaru, and in the watchtower after that, where people directly confront Subaru with the fact that Emilia could be in danger, to which he replies that sure, he has to protect her, but she is not the only one who needs protection. It's a stunning evolution from the reclusive, aimless need who arrived in this world, brimming with a main character complex, but lacking any real sense of purpose and confidence. For Subaru, self-sacrifice has always been the answer, a fallback fueled by return by death, but in the current day, he chooses a different path, inspired by those who have stood by him and helped him grow, as well as the exact one who gave him that power, which he interpreted in the wrong way at first. Subaru started believing in his self-worth, in the value of his own life, and not relying in his overpowered ability. But the fact was that he always possessed a skill more powerful than return by death. Those who believed in him and his ability to bring people together, a strength he has had all along, even if he was yet to realize it. If you even take a look at the first opening of the anime, Subaru falls on his back, spreading blood on the ground and dying. However, in the first ending of Season 3, when blood seemingly splatters on a similar white ground, Subaru is actually lifted from his back from all the ends of his friends, symbolizing that the people around him are his new strength, avoiding his sacrifice. Subaru has given a purpose in life for so many people, from Ram, Otto, Emilia, Garfield, and the one that I have a personal intrigue when it comes to Subaru's influence, Wilhelm von Astria, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. Subaru had come with a plan to use Sirius' very own emotional amplification to turn it back by amplifying their emotions but in a positive way, so the knights could remain calm and keep on fighting. However, the plan requires someone to give a speech of hope and convince people they were not alone. But who would do this? Anastasia, despite being a candidate, does not hold a position to make people believe that they will be saved, and Julius feels the same about it. Crush is not in a proper position to speak right now, and the others are not present there. But that's when Garfield himself, one of the people Subaru had given a purpose, suggests Subaru himself should talk to them. In fact, Subaru is the one who defeated the Sin Archbishop of Slav. The only person who had the right to talk about resisting the very own witch cult was none other than him. Yet, he did not believe in himself. Subaru believed that he always relied on others to bring him up and fight for him, as he deep down knew he wasn't capable of doing it. But that's when Aldebaran confronts him, claiming that to do that, he would have to be a hero. The moment he would raise his voice on the communicator, he would elevate from being just Emily's knight to the hero in Rising who would save everyone in Priestella. And being from the same place as Subaru, all knew this is a huge burden to carry. However, the word hero remembers Subaru of something very important that happened to him a year ago. From a certain summon he vowed he would be the hero of, saving everyone as it suited him. If it's just a matter of being a hero, I've already made my decision a year ago. Otherwise, I'll bring shame to the girl watching over me and the girl whose back I'm watching. And I want to do a callback to one pivotal scene that encapsulates and foreshadows the theme of Subaru's own heroism. The night talk with Wilhelm and Subaru. The parallel between these two characters is striking. Both are protagonists in their own stories. In fact, Wilhelm's story, the Sword Demon Love Song, could stand alone as its own separate story of ReZero and still work pretty well, although that prequel is a must-read as it carries so much foreshadowing to the series. So I'll give you a tiny bit of context. During the demi-human civil war, Wilhelm Trias, who fought for the human side, was powerful yet blinded by pride, a pride centered around his mastery of the sword, his only strength. But his ideals were turned upside down when he encountered a girl in a field of flowers who shared his self-image and ideals, making him feel betrayed by the values he held for his own life. This girl went further, breaking down his pride as she surpassed him in the one art he dedicated his life to, the swordsmanship, and which he believed was the only way of living. She ultimately claimed the title of Legunica's hero, bringing the war to an end, a feat Wilhelm himself couldn't achieve. Yet despite her legendary status, she loathed that title, a truth Wilhelm deeply knew. She just wanted to be a normal girl who enjoyed the flowers, a girl who enjoyed the peace. As Wilhelm once failed to be Legunica's hero, he resolved to become Theresia's hero, dedicating himself to relieving her of the role she detested. In the end, after finally destroying his own ideals, Wilhelm finally grew strong enough to defeat her, thereby becoming her hero and the new hope of Legunica. In the night talk scene, Wilhelm quotes, "The heroes who left their mark on history did not necessarily continue being heroes in their daily lives," a quote that perfectly represents not only Subaru, but his wife, who in normal days was just a girl who took care of flowers. Subaru was just a normal guy, being tossed around by a wind called fate while enjoying the connections he made all along. But for the people of Legunica, however, they were both seen as a ray of hope as soon as their name was mentioned, even if deep down they knew they did not acknowledge that title. You can even take a look at how Liliana makes the same connection of Subaru, Wilhelm and Theresia once she is introduced, as how she wants to sing about Subaru's achievements just the same way as she sang the Sword Demon Love Song. And as I mentioned earlier, this whole thing of heroism originated 1 year ago with Subaru's most significant turning point, from zero, which can make a very interesting parallel with Wilhelm's own story, who just called Subaru a hero. Since Subaru arrived in that world, he has saved countless lives through his power to rewind time, though almost no one noticed his relentless efforts. This sense of self-sacrifice fostered pride, stemming from his unique ability to control outcomes. Yet in From Zero, a girl, Ram, dismantled his pride, which brought him to blame himself for being weak and worthless. But she acknowledged him as her hero regardless of that, not for strength or feats, but for his own traits of never giving up and changing people, just like how he was able to change her. And while Ram acknowledged Subaru's vulnerable side, she always understood that no hero can remain heroic every moment of every day. It's simply beyond human capacity. Ultimately, his fragile foundations and attempts to hide them with his self-loathing didn't matter to her. She saw beneath it all the goodness that defined him, much like Theresia once saw in Wilhelm. Ram recognized Subaru's true worth despite his struggles, much like Wilhelm would rely on his meetings with Theresia to somehow vent about tragic outcomes. While Wilhelm swung his sword over and over again to foster his pride, Subaru ended up doing the same, dying over and over again fostering a similar pride, only for it to be crushed by the girls who acknowledged them as heroes. And both of them talking about this topic in a night talk seems much more deep when you make these connections. However, as we saw, Subaru didn't seem to feel worthy of such titles, and this happened to Wilhelm as well. Their fates as heroes took a tragic turn when they lost the ones from whom they bore their heroism. Theresia was killed, and Ram was put in a coma. Neither Wilhelm nor Subaru could consider themselves heroes any longer, despite their achievements, and Subaru even told that to Liliana. And it was really meant to be a parallel, as we can see in this passage of the novel. It plays a bit differently in the anime with some added content, but it's a similar talk to that one Subaru and Ram had with Wilhelm a couple of times before the White Whale raid, but with one added scene at the end. It actually takes place after the successful discussions with Crush to take on the White Whale raid, and Felix willingly decides to give both Subaru and Ram the context why Wilhelm was so interested in fighting the White Whale, to which he quotes, "Seems like he thought of challenging the White Whale himself, abandoning everything," to which Ram replies, "I want the people I love to always be cheering, even if I'm gone. I want them to remember me with a smile on their face." Wilhelm interrupts them and apologizes for making them listen to something so unpleasant, to which Ram replies, "You sure do love your wife." Wilhelm reassures this, and Subaru reveals that both him and Ram will be joining the fight. Wilhelm is surprised to how stubborn Subaru is, and surely feels moved to hear the devotion of the boy to help him. Wilhelm then leaves the room, and looking at Subaru, Ram asks, "If I'm gone, will you remember me for about as long as that?" To which Subaru replies with a discouraged face, "That doesn't sound like good luck, so I don't want to answer." He pokes Ram's forehead with his finger, to which Ram smiles as if indicating she received the answer she was looking for. And we know what came next. Shout out to Ramon Water who translated this, by the way. I'll leave the links to both them and Witch Cult translations, which has most of the translations I used in this video, in the description down below. Back to the night talk. Because of this, Subaru says, "I'm just an immature little child who is clumsy at everything I do." But as we know, Subaru was the one who showed Wilhelm the path for his long-awaited revenge. Ever since Therese's death, Wilhelm tried relentlessly to seek revenge on his own, ignoring everyone around him. However, Subaru proved to him that there were people to help him, that he was not alone, and his pride was blinding him like it did in his past. After hearing Subaru's claim, Wilhelm recognizes in him the same journey he once took, knowing that true heroism is born in vulnerability, in gathering strength from others and using it for others. The vulnerability Wilhelm acknowledged, but had never been able to embrace like Subaru did, and clearly stated. With a sense of deep care and affection for the boy, Wilhelm replies, "Well, this immature little child who is clumsy at everything he does is one I'm very fond of. But I'm just a weakling who can't do anything. Yes, and it is that very weakling who can't do anything whom I respect the most. For anything you cannot accomplish, you gather others who cannot accomplish the same and make it possible." An oppressive silence had fallen over the refugee shelter. It had been several hours since the announcement that the control towers to the great water gates of Priestella had been taken by the witch cult. And soon, the sound of a transmission from the control towers is heard. Everyone living in the city knew that the faint tremble in the air was an indication that the broadcast was coming. That precursor to the broadcast sent a sense of physical revulsion throughout their body. The change they were hoping for should have been something positive, but the broadcast only brings the witch cult's malice.
聞こえてるみたいで助かる。あれ、まずは最初に驚かせてごめん。今度は何言われんだって不安になった人が大勢いたと思うけど、安心してくれ。今この放送してる俺は魔女教の人間じゃない。先にそれを伝えておく。
The words, "then that means we are saved," encompass the hopes of everyone inside the shelter.
期待させて悪いんだが、魔女教の脅威はまだ去ってない。都市庁舎は取り戻したけど、制御塔は奴らの手に落ちたまんまだ。都市が水没する危険も、奴らの要求もまだ生きてる。それも伝えておく。ごめんな。
Yet, this fleeting hope wasn't crushed by anyone else, but by the youth behind the broadcasting device himself.
みんな不安でいっぱいなはずだ。だってのに、わざわざ変にみんなの期待を煽るような真似をして、俺を何様だって思ってる人もいるはずだ。俺は何様でも何者でもないよ。みんなと同じ状況に振り回されて理不尽に押しつぶされそうでビビって足が震えてる。そんなやつだ。
Subaru dismantles the illusion of a savior from the outset. By honestly admitting that he is neither strong nor particularly capable, he sidesteps the typical inspiring tone and instead exposes his vulnerability. It's a daring approach for one who wanted to be the hero, acknowledging the hope he's building, only to change it himself by saying he's not enough. And it's not like it's calculated. Subaru simply speaks the truth. It's exactly what he feels. He's a normal human, just like those listening, and just as susceptible to doubt.
本当ならもっとこうしてみんなに話しかけるのにふさわしい人は他にいるんだ。きっとそうだ。だけど今こうして俺が話してる。俺なんかよりよっぽどすごい人たちが俺がやるべきだってそう言ってくれてる。そうすることに意味があるんだって。
The attitude of the listeners had gone beyond surprise and disappointment, until all was left was uncertainty. Right now, when what everyone yearned for was hope, why did they put this youth in front of a broadcasting device? Even the youth himself said there were more qualified people, but why did they send him? Subaru's apology holds layers. It's not just regret for the broadcast, but a preemptive apology for the disappointment he might cause. His honesty about fear, weakness, and indecisions disarms the audience, stripping away their expectations of heroism. But this is the start of what he's about to do. The hope he offers is not traditional. It's an invitation to see a reflection of their own struggles in him. This portrayal of an unheroic hero, shaking under pressure and acknowledging his flaws, reshapes what it means to lead. Rather than a figure above the people, he places himself among them.
俺の声震えてないか？ 人前に立つなんて俺のキャラじゃないんだよ。立派なことも言えないし、みんなを引っ張ってくカリスマだって俺にはない。弱くてどうしようもなくて、こんな大一番今だって逃げたくてしょうがなくて、何ができるかなんてわからなくて、耳を塞いで頭を抱えて、自分がうずくまってる間に全部解決してくれればなんて他力本願を願って。
やだ。
What the youth was saying was nothing less than the inner thoughts of every person cowering under the witch cult's threat. It was the weakness eating away one's heart. It was the cowardice rooted in the depths of one's minds. It was the unbearable dread tormenting one's soul. Surely, it was a situation nobody could do anything about.
それでも逃げられないから戦う。俺はそれだけのやつだ。
Subaru declares that he will fight precisely because he can't run away. He captures the essence of resilience, the strength to face reality even if it's terrifying. He isn't fearless, he is simply unwilling to let his fear control him. A vital moment as he challenges the audience's perception of bravery, revealing it as something accessible to everyone, not just the chosen few. And at the end, it's what he has been doing all along. Ever since he came to that world, he was powerless, he feared dying, he was a good for nothing, yet he didn't run away. Obviously, with the help of those who stood behind him.
もう一度聞かせてくれ。この声を聞いてる人は今どこにいる？避難所に逃げ込めてるか？自分の家に隠れてるのか？一人で震えてたりしないか？誰かと一緒にいられてるか？一緒にいるのは大切な人か？知らない顔でもこの数時間で見知った顔になったか？勝手な話だし難しいかもしれないけど、お願いだから一人にならないでくれ。一人でいるとつまらない考えばっかり浮かんでくるんだ。経験則だ。わかるよ。だから一人にならないでくれ。誰かと一緒にいてくれ。そしてできるなら一緒にいる誰かの顔を見てくれ。
A girl looks at her brother's face, close to crying. It was a crumpled face, a face that was about to burst into tears. While reflected in her brother's eyes, her own face was hollow, as if it had lost its expression.
誰の顔を見た？大切な人か？それともこの数時間を一緒に過ごした知らない相手か？多分ひでえ顔してるだろう。泣き顔だったり辛そうだったり、笑ってる顔はないと思う。それが許せるかよ。
Hearing her little brother faintly calling her, the girl gently held him closer and pressed her forehead against his. A feverish heat transferred between them. Hot, very hot, it was the heat of life. Don't be alone or turn to the face beside you may seem simple advice, but it's profound. This moment pushes the normal civilians to transcend their isolation and reach out to one another, reinforcing that together they are stronger than they are alone. It's a reminder that even the smallest connections, a shared glance, a familiar presence, can foster courage in the face of overwhelming fear, shifting the narrative of heroism away from grand actions to the small, yet powerful decision to help the other and stand together. And guess what Subaru did when he was the only one capable of saving Emilia from the loot house, the only one who could save Ram from the curse, and what he learned with Otto in the sanctuary. As long as there is a familiar face, one that he loves, he will not hesitate into helping them.
俺は許せない。許したくない。俺にも大切な人がいる。大事な仲間がいる。俺はその大切な人たちに辛い顔や悲しい顔をさせてる奴らが許せない。ふざけんじゃねえ。バカにすんなよ。俺の知ってるこの子の笑顔は本当はもっと可愛いんだぜって言ってやりてえ。負けっぱなしじゃいられねえ。投げっぱなしじゃ格好がつかねえ。やられっぱなしでいいわけがねえ。間違ってるのはあいつらだ。間違ってる奴らに負けるなんて我慢ならねえ。あんな奴らに負けを認めるなんて俺はしたくない。だから戦う。弱いのも頭が悪いのも全部分かってるけど戦ってやる。あいつらが間違ってる。俺の好きな人たちに泣きそうな顔をさせるあいつらが間違ってる。だから戦う。俺は戦う。みんなにも戦ってほしい。勘違いしないでくれ。何も棒で殴りかかるって話じゃない。俺がみんなに望むことは下を向かないでほしいってことなんだ。
下を向かない。
足元じっと睨みつけてても何も変わらねえよ。だから顔を上げて前を向いてくれ。周り見渡してみたらきっと誰かと目が合う。 それは同じ不安を抱えてる誰かだけど、同じ負けたくないって気持ちを抱えた誰かでもある。
The girl looked up, not at her niece, not at her brother's blonde hair, but at the shelter, and there she saw the faces of those around her, also lifting. Their eyes met, wide open as if in astonishment. Just like the girl, everyone subconsciously raised their faces, obeying the voice of the youth. Just as the youth said, the people's gazes intersected as they lifted their faces. The gleams within their eyes were complicated, and surely the girl's own eyes must have been the same. However, there now seemed to be something more than just tremors of terror.
信じさせてくれよ。弱くてどうしようもない俺がまだ諦められねえんだ。諦めの悪い弱虫が俺だけじゃないって、そう信じさせてくれよ。
The youth's feelings had never changed since the moment his broadcast began. While lamenting his weak, insufficient self, he did not give up. He was telling himself that this was his only weapon, and telling everyone else that they were also the same. Subaru brings a powerful moment of surrender. He drops any pretense of confidence, openly admitting that his strength depends on the belief that he's not alone. From what he learned in the sanctuary, he can't do everything by himself. Otto showed him he has people around him he could rely on. In doing so, he levels with his audience in a way that's deeply intimate. The plea isn't only to inspire them, but to reassure himself, revealing his need for connection as an anchor. By asking for help, Subaru isn't just giving them permission to feel their weakness. He's inviting them to share in the responsibility of hope. In this shared plea, they are united in mutual reliance. A crowd of individual voices blending into one's collective will.
それとも俺だけなのか。
The voice lost its confidence. Or rather, the youth's voice had no confidence to begin with. A sense of agitation surged up. Don't go, whatever it takes. The girl wanted to shout for him to stay.
そんなことないよ。
まだやれるって、まだ戦えるってそう思ってるのは俺だけなのか。違う。そうだ、違うぞ。違うよな。違う。まだみんなも戦ってるよな。弱さに飲まれやしないよな。負けたくない。負けないぞ。
あなたの声が聞こえるから大丈夫。
そばにいるのが大切な人なら、その手を握って信じてくれ。隣り合うのが知らない誰かなら一緒に頑張ろうってうなずきかけてくれ。自分もその人も負けも折れもしないで戦えるんだって。みんなが折れずにいてくれるなら俺も諦めないで戦って勝ってみせる。
The core of his speech isn't to provide a solution, but to offer a mirror, so they too can find strength in the acceptance of their weakness. As Subaru urges them to hold their hand and believe in those around them, he makes fighting against despair an achievable act, just like Subaru learned to do. He redefines fighting not as physical combat, but as the conscious decision to lift their heads, hold on to each other, and refuse to wield upon this threat. Each person present now embodies the strength they once sought from others. Subaru has catalyzed this shift, building a chain of courage that relies on the humanity of those around him, rather than the promise of strength or skill, a power Subaru has always been unconsciously using all along.
俺の名前は夏木スバル。魔女教滞在式を平を倒した精霊使いだ。魔女教は俺と仲間たちがどうにかする。だからみんな信じて戦ってくれ。大切な人の手を握って負けそうになる弱い心をぶっ飛ばしてくれ。
Subaru reshapes their perception of him from someone like us into a living symbol of hope. Yet, even here, he doesn't bask in the title, but uses it to bolster their faith that someone capable, someone who has overcome before, stands with them. The name Natsuki Subaru becomes more than a label. It's the embodiment of resilience, hope, and tenacity. The breakdown during this speech from weakling to hero doesn't diminish his humility. Instead, it enhances it, for he remains as a part of their struggle, rather than a distant savior.
そしたら後のことは全部この俺に任せておけ。
Deafening cheers erupted, flooding the shelter with heated enthusiasm. Expectation became hope, and in a single breath, one hope became hope unbearable. At the end, different from the anime, Anastasia is in shock. She even wonders if Subaru ever used rhetoric in the past due to how flawless his performance was, bringing people down just to lift them up shortly after. But this was not the case. Subaru just spoke his heart. Subaru spoke what he strongly believed ever since he came to this world. The same words he has told himself over and over again to never give up on the people he cared about. He acknowledges how he cried, how he feared, over and over again, but in the end, He never gave up on those he could save. And despite not saving them in a literal sense of I destroyed that enemy, which is common for most protagonists of a series do, Subaru is different. He challenges people into overcoming their own fear. He brings people together and make the impossible seem possible. And that is what it means to be a hero. At that place, everyone could be a hero. Everyone was a hero. Even Subaru, before revealing his name, was already a hero. The heroes who would not hesitate into helping the faces around them. The heroes who, despite powerless, would not allow the evil to take over who they love. The heroes who would stand fighting as long as they live. In many ways, Subaru's journey has always been one of self-destruction and renewal, at least for the viewer. A process of breaking down under relentless pressure only to rise again. This moment, however, goes even further, moving from an internal transformation of Subaru witnessed by the viewer to an open revelation shared with an entire crowd of the very own show. A thing we are used to see in internal monologues of Subaru, but now he shares it with everyone. It's like the crowd is the reader now, and they are reading Subaru's internal monologue. Like it's insane to me. But rather than weakening him, this vulnerability becomes a wellspring of strength and hope. By showing his raw self, Subaru reveals a simple yet profound truth, that courage lies not in flawless resolve, but in the strength to stand again, and again, and again, and again, alongside others, in the most simple way as showing them who Natsuki Subaru is, and what Natsuki Subaru learned throughout his journey in this world. Subaru uses this trait to inspire people without throwing his humanity away, just as he did in the broadcast, in the fight against the White Whale, and even in the Sanctuary. His honesty, humility, and courage to reveal his own frailty resonate powerfully, much like Teresa's unspoken lessons did for Wilhelm. That's why he was the first one, right after Ram, who acknowledged Subaru as a hero. Subaru's heroic talent of uplifting others, of connecting through weakness and finding courage collectively, is what truly elevates him. This rare ability to bring people together and foster resilience in the face of impossible odds shows Subaru has, in his own way, become a hero not unlike Wilhelm and Teresa. A hero by virtue of fighting to inspire others, never to look down, to keep moving forward, as Wilhelm once told him, as Ram believed and engraved in his heart, and as the friends who always stuck together along with him. And these are the heroic braveries of Natsuki Subaru. The girl looked down at her younger brother in her arms and saw the undeniable light dwelling in his eyes. Just to be sure, she embraced her brother tightly once more, and while savoring the warmth of that embrace, the girl looked up towards the ceiling. Unable to hide his fear or apprehension, that youth nevertheless took on the hopes of every person in the city and declared that he will fight. The girl closed her eyes, sketching out the image of the hero whose face she didn't even know, and prayed for every imaginable good fortune upon him. Because, surely, he must just be a commonplace youth fighting for the sake of someone important to him. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. It means the world to me for you to keep up with my opinion of this amazing chapter and episode. So if you liked it, please make sure to give me your support by subscribing. I know I'm a bit late. I almost cried multiple times doing this for you to understand my love for this moment. But despite being hard to express how much I really love this scene, I think I came up with a pretty nice analysis. And as I always say, literature is subjective to each one's interpretation. So this is my opinion. So let me know what is your opinion of this moment of ReZero in the comments down below. I'm really interested to see what you guys think about this scene I hold so dear in my heart. Other than that, thank you so much for watching again, and I see you in the next one.